Hashtag a single dad helped a female cop on the road. What he saw next changed everything. The blue and red lights flashed against the rain-slicked asphalt as Mike pulled his truck to the shoulder. Through his rearview mirror, he could see the police officer struggling with something under the hood of her cruiser, shoulders hunched against the downpour. His 8-year-old daughter Lily watched wide-eyed from the passenger seat as he grabbed his raincoat. "Stay here, sweetheart. I'm going to help that officer." Little did Mike know that this simple act of kindness on a stormy night would set in motion events that would forever alter the course of both their lives. If you're touched by stories of unexpected connections and second chances, hit that like button and subscribe to see more real-life stories that remind us how a single moment of compassion can change everything. Mike Jenkins had mastered the art of one-handed living. Whether it was flipping pancakes while helping Lily with homework or fixing a leaky faucet while taking a work call, multitasking had become second nature since becoming a single dad 3 years ago. Tonight was no different, driving home from Lily's dance recital, wiping away her tears after she'd stumbled during her solo, all while navigating through the worst storm of the season. "Dad, look!" Lily pointed through the rain-streaked window at the police cruiser on the side of the road, hazard lights blinking desperately into the darkness. Mike slowed his truck, squinting through the downpour. The officer, a woman, he realized, was bent over the engine compartment, a flashlight clutched between her teeth. Something in her posture spoke of frustration and defeat. "Should we stop?" Lily asked, her earlier disappointment forgotten. Mike checked his watch. It was already past Lily's bedtime, and tomorrow was a school day. But he couldn't drive past someone who needed help, especially not with his daughter watching. What kind of example would that set? "Of course we're stopping, Lil. That's what we do, right? Help people when they need it." He pulled his truck behind the cruiser and grabbed his raincoat from behind the seat. "Stay put, okay? Lock the doors. I'll be right back." The rain hit him like 1,000 tiny needles as he jogged toward the police car. The officer straightened up at his approach, her hand instinctively moving toward her holster. "Just here to help," Mike called out, raising his hand slightly. As he got closer, he could see her more clearly, mid-30s maybe, dark hair plastered to her face, exhaustion evident in the shadows beneath her eyes. "Car trouble?" he asked, unnecessarily. She nodded, relaxing slightly. "Radiator hose burst. I've called for assistance, but with this storm, they're backed up for hours." "I'm Mike," he said, extending his hand. "I'm pretty good with cars. Mind if I take a look?" "Officer Sarah Reeves," she replied, shaking his hand firmly. "And please, be my guest. I've tried everything short of prayer." Mike leaned under the hood, quickly identifying the problem. "You're right about the radiator hose. I've got some tools and tape in my truck that might get you back on the road, at least until you can get to a garage." As he worked, Officer Reeves stood beside him, holding the flashlight. "You're out late with this weather," she observed. "Coming back from my daughter's dance recital." "She's in the truck." Mike nodded toward his vehicle where Lily's face was pressed against the window, watching with interest. "That's sweet. You're a good dad." Mike smiled but didn't respond. Being called a good dad always left him feeling like an imposter. The truth was, he was just doing his best, making it up as he went along since Clara's death. 20 minutes later, he'd managed a temporary fix for the radiator hose. "This should hold until you can get it properly repaired, but don't push it too hard." "I can't thank you enough," Officer Reeves said, genuine gratitude in her voice. "Most people would have just driven by." "Happy to help. Stay safe out there." Mike turned to leave, but she called after him. "Wait," she hesitated, then reached into her pocket and pulled out a business card. "If you ever need anything, a favor, or just... I don't know. Anyway, here's my number." Mike took the card, surprised by the gesture. "Thanks. I appreciate that." Back in his truck, Lily bombarded him with questions. Was she arresting bad guys? Did her car break? Did you fix it? Is she your friend now? Mike chuckled, tucking the card into his wallet. Just helping someone out, Lil. That's all. 3 weeks later, Mike had almost forgotten about the encounter when his phone rang during Lily's soccer practice. It was the school. Mr. Jenkins? This is Principal Winters. There's been an incident involving Lily. She's okay, but we need you to come to the school immediately. Mike's heart hammered in his chest as he raced to his truck. The 15-minute drive to Westridge Elementary felt like hours. When he arrived, he was directed to the principal's office, where he found Lily sitting in a chair, her eyes red from crying. What happened? He demanded, kneeling in front of his daughter. Principal Winters, a stern woman with silver-rimmed glasses, cleared her throat. Mr. Jenkins, Lily was involved in a physical altercation with another student. What? Mike looked at his daughter in disbelief. Lily was the gentlest soul he knew. She pushed Tyler Brennan to the ground during recess. Tyler has a scraped elbow and a bruised ego, but he'll be fine. However, our zero-tolerance policy for physical violence means. He was saying mean things about Mom, Lily interrupted, her voice small but defiant. He said she left because she didn't want us anymore. Mike felt like he'd been punched in the stomach. Clara hadn't left, she died of cancer when Lily was 5. The pain of that loss was still raw, especially for Lily. I understand this is upsetting, Principal Winters continued, but our policy requires a 3-day suspension. 3 days? For defending herself against emotional bullying? Mike struggled to keep his voice level. The policy doesn't distinguish between provoked and unprovoked incidents, Mr. Jenkins. I'm sorry. Mike was about to argue further when there was a knock at the door. To his surprise, Officer Sarah Reeves stepped into the office, now in plain clothes rather than her uniform. Sorry to interrupt, she said, but I'm here about the Brennan Jenkins incident. Principal Winters looked confused. Officer Reeves, I didn't realize the police had been called. They weren't officially, Sarah explained. I'm Tyler's aunt. His mother called me. Mike's heart sank. Of course. The one person who might have been on their side was related to the other child. But Sarah surprised him. I've spoken with Tyler, and he's admitted to taunting Lily about her mother. While I don't condone physical responses, I believe this situation calls for understanding rather than punishment. Principal Winters frowned. Our policy. With all due respect, Sarah interrupted, policies should guide decisions, not dictate them. These are children learning to navigate difficult emotions. Perhaps a mediated conversation between the children would be more beneficial than suspension. Mike watched in amazement as Sarah skillfully negotiated with the principal, eventually securing an agreement. Instead of suspension, Lily would spend 3 afternoons helping in the school library, and both children would participate in a restorative justice session with the school counselor. Outside the school, Mike finally found his voice. I don't know how to thank you. Sarah smiled. Consider it repayment for fixing my car. Besides, Tyler was in the wrong. He needs to learn that words can hurt just as much as actions. Still, you didn't have to step in like that. Maybe I wanted to. She hesitated, then added, look, I know this might be inappropriate, but would you and Lily like to get ice cream? I think you both could use something sweet after today. Mike looked down at Lily, who was watching the exchange with interest. What do you think, Lil? Ice cream with Officer Reeves? Lily nodded enthusiastically. Can I get sprinkles? I think sprinkles are mandatory after a day like today, Sarah replied with a wink. That ice cream outing became the first of many shared moments. Sarah, it turned out, was not only Tyler's aunt but also newly transferred to their district, having moved to care for her elderly mother. She was smart, funny, and surprisingly easy to talk to. Most importantly, she connected with Lily in a way few adults had since Clara's death. Over the following months, Sarah became a regular presence in their lives. She taught Lily self-defense moves that don't involve pushing boys, helped Mike navigate the complexities of elementary school politics, and even showed up with soup when they both caught the flu. For Mike, who had spent 3 years focused solely on being a father, Sarah's friendship awakened feelings he'd thought were permanently dormant. But he kept those feelings carefully contained. Lily had already lost one mother figure. He couldn't risk bringing someone into their lives who might leave. What Mike didn't realize was that Sarah was fighting her own battles. Her mother's health was deteriorating rapidly, and her job was becoming increasingly demanding. The peaceful life she'd imagined when moving to this small town was proving elusive. The breaking point came on a crisp autumn evening. Sarah had promised to attend Lily's make-up dance recital, her chance to perform the solo she'd stumbled through the night Mike and Sarah first met. But as the lights dimmed and the music started, Sarah's seat remained empty. Mike watched his daughter scan the audience repeatedly during her performance, her smile faltering each time she looked at the vacant chair. When the recital ended, Lily's first words were, "Where's Sarah?" "I don't know, sweetheart. Maybe something came up at work." But even as he said it, Mike felt a familiar disappointment settling in his chest. People always left eventually. They were halfway home when Mike's phone rang. It was Sarah, her voice thick with tears. "Mike, I'm so sorry. My mom, she fell. I'm at the hospital. I wanted to call earlier, but everything happened so fast, Anne. Is she okay?" Mike interrupted, concern immediately replacing his disappointment. "They're running tests. It might be a stroke." Sarah's voice broke. "I feel terrible about missing Lily's recital." "Don't worry about that. Which hospital are you at?" 20 minutes later, Mike and Lily walked into the hospital waiting room, bearing a bouquet of flowers hastily purchased from the gift shop. Sarah looked up in surprise, her eyes red-rimmed and exhausted. "You didn't have to come," she said as Lily handed her the flowers. "Yes, we did," Mike replied simply. "That's what friends do." They stayed with her through the night, Lily eventually falling asleep across several chairs while Mike and Sarah talked in hushed tones. Her mother had indeed suffered a minor stroke, but the prognosis was cautiously optimistic. "I don't know how I'm going to manage," Sarah confessed around midnight. "The doctor says she'll need full-time care for at least a few weeks, maybe longer. I can't take that much leave from work, and I can't afford a professional caregiver." Mike hesitated, then said, "I work from home most days. I could help." Sarah stared at him. "Mike, that's too much to ask." "You're not asking. I'm offering." He smiled slightly. "Besides, your mom makes the best chocolate chip cookies I've ever tasted. Consider it a selfish request." Sarah laughed, then impulsively leaned forward and kissed his cheek. "You're an extraordinary man, Mike Jenkins." The touch of her lips against his skin lingered long after she pulled away. The following weeks established a new routine. Mike would drop Lily at school, then head to Sarah's mother's house to work remotely while keeping an eye on Eleanor. Sarah would relieve him in the afternoons, and often they'd all have dinner together, Mike, Lily, Sarah, and Eleanor, forming an unconventional but harmonious family unit. Eleanor, despite her physical limitations, was sharp-witted and observant. One afternoon, as Mike helped her with her physical therapy exercises, she fixed him with a knowing look. "You're in love with my daughter," she stated matter-of-factly. Mike nearly dropped the resistance band he was holding. What? "No, we're just friends." Eleanor snorted. "I may be old, but I'm not blind. The way you look at her when you think no one's watching, it's the same way my Harold used to look at me." Mike felt heat rising to his face. "It's complicated, Eleanor. Love always is, dear. But that doesn't mean you run from it." She patted his hand. Sarah's been hurt before. Badly. She's afraid to trust again. But she looks at you the same way, you know. Mike didn't know how to respond to that, so he changed the subject. But Eleanor's words echoed in his mind for days afterward. Meanwhile, Lily was blossoming. Having Sarah and Eleanor in her life seemed to fill a void she'd carried since losing her mother. She talked more about Clara now, sharing memories without the crushing sadness that had previously accompanied them. And she'd taken to calling Eleanor Grandma Ellie, a title the older woman wore with pride. One evening, as Mike tucked Lily into bed, she asked the question he'd been dreading, "Dad, is Sarah going to be my new mom?" Mike sat on the edge of her bed, choosing his words carefully. "Sarah is our friend, Lily. A very special friend. But you like her. Like her." Lily's expression was serious. "I see you smiling at her the way Prince Charming smiles at Cinderella." Mike couldn't help but laugh. "Is that so?" Lily nodded solemnly. "And I think she likes you too. So why can't she be part of our family?" "It's not that simple, Lil." "Why not?" "Mom would want us to be happy. She told me so." Mike felt his throat tighten. "When did she tell you that?" "Before she went to heaven. She said, always remember to be happy, Lily Pad, and help Daddy remember too." Lily's eyes were clear and certain. "I think Sarah makes you remember how to be happy, Dad." Out of the mouths of babes, Mike thought as he kissed his daughter goodnight. Maybe it was time to stop being afraid. The opportunity came sooner than he expected. The following weekend, Eleanor insisted on having a Grandma Day, with Lily, leaving Mike and Sarah unexpectedly free. On impulse, Mike suggested a hike to the waterfall in Oak Ridge Park, a spot he hadn't visited since before Clara's illness. The autumn day was perfect, crisp and clear with leaves crunching underfoot as they followed the trail. They talked easily about everything and nothing, work, Lily's upcoming science fair project, the latest town gossip. But as they neared the waterfall, Mike felt a growing tension, a sense that they were approaching more than just a scenic vista. The waterfall was as beautiful as he remembered, cascading down moss-covered rocks into a clear pool below. They sat on a fallen log, shoulders almost touching, watching the play of light on water. "I haven't been here in years," Mike admitted. "Clara and I used to come here when we were dating." Sarah glanced at him, surprised. He rarely mentioned Clara unprompted. "She loved this place," he continued. Said it reminded her that even when life seems static, there's always movement underneath, always change coming. "She sounds like she was very wise," Sarah said softly. "She was." Mike took a deep breath. "The last time we came here, she was already sick. We knew she wasn't going to get better. She made me promise something." "What was that?" "To live, not just exist. To find joy again, for myself and for Lily." He turned to face Sarah fully. "I haven't been very good at keeping that promise. Until recently." Sarah's eyes widened slightly. "Mike. I'm not good at this," he said quickly. "The whole feelings thing. But being with you these past months has made me realize that I've been hiding. Using Lily as an excuse to avoid risking my heart again." "I understand that better than you might think," Sarah replied, her voice barely audible above the sound of the waterfall. "After my divorce, I threw myself into work, into taking care of everyone else. It was easier than admitting I was afraid." "Afraid of what?" "Of being wrong again. Of trusting the wrong person." She met his gaze. "Of not being enough." Mike reached for her hand, entwining their fingers. "You are more than enough, Sarah. You're extraordinary. And I'm falling in love with you." The words hung between them, as delicate and powerful as the mist rising from the waterfall. For a moment, Mike thought he'd made a terrible mistake. Then Sarah smiled, a slow, radiant smile that transformed her face.